El Toro is widely considered one of the best wooden roller coasters. This is because it features an unconventional layout and is a prefabricated roller coaster, meaning the wood on the track is laser cut in a factory and then brought to the site. So it's very smooth and it's almost like a plug and play roller coaster, meaning instead of having carpenters on site making the track, it's all made in a factory. This allows the coaster to do two unique things. It makes it very smooth and allows for high positive G-force during the coaster. This also features a fourth set of wheels, giving the coaster not only a unique sound, but also allowing for stronger airtime. Today, I'm going to be giving my full thoughts on El Toro, and then give a final grade for the coaster. Before we get to the ride layout, let's get some bias out of the way. I rode El Toro first in 2015 when I was just getting back into being an enthusiast. This means I knew the facts about roller coasters such as the many types and manufacturers, but my coaster count was still below 50, so I didn't really know what I liked in roller coasters yet. I rode El Toro once in the front because it was quite a long line, and sort of just forgot about the coaster. It was really weird because I knew people ranked it high, but I don't really remember much about that particular ride experience, and I wasn't able to give it another go because it went down. I was impressed with the stats and intensity, but considering I wasn't well acquainted with Rocky Mountain Construction or other airtime coasters, I didn't really have anything to compare it to. I then visited the park many more times, and it was closed for weather every single time, and I was unable to ride it for a few years. Cut to the end of 2019, and I had 4 consecutive rides in a row, and then I got 7 more rides total that day. The coaster soared in my rankings. Overall, the layout of this coaster is very impressive. Most wooden coasters are known for leaving the general park area, and even most coasters in Six Flags Great Adventure are known for being sprawled out, but El Toro is not like this. It fits into a very small sliver of land near a body of water, and it was designed to go around the now defunct Rolling Thunder coaster. It really is quite impressive that they decided to fit such a massive ride in such a small area of land, and it reminds me of Skyrush, the Intamin Hyper at Hershey Park. It's a very large coaster, but fits into a relatively small portion of land. The presentation of the coaster is fantastic. As you walk up to it in the Golden Kingdom themed area, the elements get bigger and bigger as you inch towards the entrance. You'll pass by the statue of a bull, get berated by security as this coaster has a very strict no loose articles policy, and then you're going to get to your station. This is designed to look like a bull ran through it, and the ops are very fast. Notice how the trains on El Toro are very long. There are 2 trains, each with 6 cars, evening out to 18 rows. Sitting in the middle of one of the 6 cars gives you the smoothest seat, particularly in the second row, because there is an extra pair of wheels keeping that seat closer to the track. My personal favorite seats are the very back and then the second to back row, but I recommend you check out the other rows as well because experiences will vary. The ride begins with a left turn out of the station into one of the only cable lifts on a wooden roller coaster. This is a very speedy ascent. It gives you a really nice view of your impending drop and Bizarro to your right. And my problem here is that despite El Toro being very large, the magnitude is ruined with King Dakar being right next to it. You'll go into this pre-drop, and just like I mentioned, King Dakar is right in front of you, so it doesn't seem like you're that high at all. You'll go into this drop, and you'll plunge into what is arguably probably the biggest drop on a wooden roller coaster in terms of the airtime you get. This is an amazing drop. You go straight into the support structure, and this provides wonderful head choppers. If you're in the back, the car is still on the pre-drop, meaning you'll get an insane amount of whip and airtime, again, especially in the back, but the front is really nice as well. 2 massive ejector airtime hills follow, both over 100 feet in size. Both provide amazing sustained ejector airtime, meaning not only are you out of your seat, but you're out of your seat for a whole 3 seconds. The second hill is the best moment of the ride in my opinion, but both classify as some of the best airtime moments out there. Straight after that, you'll hit 2 overbank turnarounds. This is so that the ride can get back towards the station because you've come a pretty far long way. This is the dead spot on El Toro. I love the second overbank because it provides good airtime on the miniature drop and has a lovable roughness to it, but since the first one got retracked, it's a little bit too smooth compared to the rest of the ride, and I don't know, it's just kind of a boring moment. You'll dive into the structure before hitting a floater airtime moment. This is by far the most underwhelming part of the ride for me. Watching POVs and looking at off-rides, it looked like you should get some nice RMC-type ejector airtime here, but you really don't. It's more of just a little pop, and nothing special there. An intense bank turn will lead into an oddly shaped airtime hill called the Rolling Thunder Hill. It's called this because this hill would lead you into a section surrounded by a defunct wooden roller coaster called Rolling Thunder, but now it's gone and it's just kind of in its own area now. This hill is best in the back because the front will slow down on the descent. That being said, this is one of the strongest airtime moments you can ask for. It is incredibly strong, and every time I ride El Toro, it's one of the highlight moments. After this, you'll enter the last portion of the ride, which is a rapid-fire combination of bank turns and low-to-the-ground airtime moments, taking at very high speeds. Though this section of the ride is not as good as the first few hills and drop, at least in my opinion, it is very intense. If you're more of an airtime moment person, you might not love this area. You'll probably prefer the beginning, but if you like me and you like intensity, this section is definitely for you. These hills are not fully 90 degrees, but they are super quick and have an insane amount of whip. The ending of the ride is rather anticlimactic. It's essentially a weak airtime hill into one more bank turn, but it has a little bit of floater airtime, which is nice. With as much love as El Toro gets, there are bound to be haters and people who critique the ride, notably on 2 points, the roughness and the duration. I think the roughness is understandable, considering the ride is not only huge, but wooden. So with the ride as old as it is, and with the amount of time it's going to retract, I think the amount of roughness is understandable, and I can see why people would complain about it. With that being said, I don't really care if a ride is rough, and in fact, I think it can actually add to it sometimes. So in that case scenario, actually, I like the roughness on El Toro. Now, as for the duration, yeah, the ride doesn't feel very long. It's definitely not as long as something like Steel Vengeance, but it's longer than other big woody coasters like Goliath at Six Flags Great America and Lightning Rod at Dollywood, so I feel like it's a decent length. Not only that, but the ride loses a lot of its speed. That's not to say El Toro has pacing issues, but if it was any longer, I think it would have pacing issues. So that's just my comment on the length. In fact, not to say El Toro has pacing issues, but the last 15 seconds or so of the ride do feel just a little bit slow. Now, as for the positives of this ride, I think it's a very fun coaster. Now, there are 2 things that disappointed me. One that I already mentioned was that little airtime hill in the midsection of the ride in the support structure. I feel like this hill has a lot of potential to be a great moment, but it just kind of doesn't deliver. And that's not to say El Toro doesn't deliver. I think it has pretty much everything to offer. But if it had a stronger midsection, I think it would be my number 1 coaster. But with that kind of boring bank turn and then that one little anticlimactic airtime moment, yeah, I just don't think this can make the 2 spots it needs to be my number 1 coaster. But it still is really awesome. And that middle section is thrilling. It's just not as great as the very beginning or last third. One thing I wanted to comment on is the drop. I think this drop is really nice. A lot of people say it is the greatest drop of all time. Definitely understandable. It is incredible. You get a lot of airtime, especially in the back, and I think if you can manipulate your restraint to where you have an inch or so of room, you're really getting ejected there and then pushed straight back into your seat. Because between the airtime hills and drop, there's not a lot of room. A lot of these big wooden roller coasters are very sprawled out with a lot of room between their elements, but not El Toro. El Toro dives in between its elements, and that provides some great positives that lead into some great negative G's. So I would say that even though El Toro really lacks a good middle section, it has such an amazing beginning and then a very strong last third that it really does deliver. As for where it ranks for me, I would say it's definitely top 5. However, I'm still indecisive about my top 5. And as for 2019, I'm still riding some rides that could crack it, which means I'm going to wait until I really start ranking things. But yeah, I would say definitely like the 3 to 6 range for my rankings. I like it more than most of the Rocky Mountain construction coasters I've ridden because even though El Toro doesn't have that many elements, the elements it does have are really incredible. I mean, a big airtime hill seems pretty basic, but it really goes a long way as far as El Toro goes. As for all my reviews, I finish up with the final grade, and I will be giving El Toro an A+, and that should come as no surprise to some of you. This is a really great coaster, definitely the best in the park. You need to check it out if you're in the park 100%. It is a fantastic wooden roller coaster, and I really recommend you go out and ride it. Thanks for watching, everyone. My name is Coaster Cupcake. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I will catch you all next time. Bye, guys.